Have you ever sat in a quiet house and felt like the silence had weight to it? Like your own thoughts echoed louder than any conversation ever could? It's not just the stillness that's hard. It's what that stillness means. The dinners for one, the birthdays with fewer candles, the holidays that don't feel quite the same anymore. You raise your children, you give them your heart, your energy, your time, and then one day they're gone. Moved out, moved on, living their lives. And you're left behind, trying to make sense of what your life looks like now. It's not that you don't want them to grow up. Of course you do. But no one ever really prepares you for how empty the room feels after they do. If that hits home, I want you to know something important. You're not alone. And more than that, you're not finished. This chapter of your life, the one after the goodbyes and the quiet mornings, is still yours to write. And it can be powerful, it can be peaceful, it can be full of meaning again. So today, we're going to talk about that. About how you rebuild the part of yourself that may have been wrapped up in being a parent for so long. About how you rediscover your strength, not in noise, not in activity, not in trying to fix what's already changed, but in a quiet kind of confidence that grows from the inside out. Let's begin with the silence. Not the painful silence of being forgotten or overlooked, but the powerful silence that comes when you stop explaining yourself. When you stop trying to get your kids to call more, visit more, check in more. That silence. The one that says, I'm okay. I'm still me. The most powerful thing you might ever say to your children, as they drift away, isn't a lecture or a plea or even a long letter. It might just be nothing. No guilt trips. No sarcastic remarks. Just peace. You see, when you choose silence, real silence, not the kind that seethes, you're no longer reaching. You're no longer waiting for someone else to validate your place in their world. You're standing still with dignity, and that can be more powerful than any argument. That silence, it says, I'm not chasing you. I'm here and I'm strong. And here's something else. Silence often speaks louder than our words ever could. Your kids may not notice it at first. They may not realize how often you used to send a text or leave a voicemail, but they will notice the space when you stop. They'll notice when you stop trying to fill in every gap. And that absence, that calm, steady silence, becomes a message all on its own. Now, this isn't about withdrawing in bitterness. It's about choosing peace over pressure. It's about understanding that your energy, your attention, your emotional presence, those are valuable. And just because your children have moved on, doesn't mean you owe them your well-being. You gave them your all for decades. Now it's time to give a little of that back to yourself. But silence is only the beginning. Next comes something even more powerful. Learning to take control of what's yours and letting go of what isn't. There's a deep pain that comes from trying to hold on to things you were never meant to control in the first place. The phone calls they don't return, the birthdays they forget, the distance, physical and emotional, that just seems to grow. You can't force your children to come back. You can't guilt them into caring the way you wish they would. And the more you try, the more it slips through your fingers. But here's the truth. You still have power. You always did. It just may have been buried under years of putting others first. You control how you wake up in the morning, how you speak to yourself when no one's listening, whether you take a walk or stay in bed, whether you pick up the phone to call a friend or let the day go by in silence. These small choices, these are yours, and they matter. Every time you let go of what you can't change, you make space for what you can. You stop checking your phone to see if your kids replied. You start checking in with yourself instead. How's your heart doing today? What did you do just for you? Not for them, not for anyone else. For you. There's a kind of freedom in that shift. It's like exhaling after holding your breath for too long. You realize that you've been chasing peace in all the wrong places, waiting for someone else to give it to you. But now, you get to claim it, not by forcing anyone to come back, but by choosing not to be ruled by their absence. So if your daughter hasn't called in weeks, if your son seems too busy for anything more than a quick "hey," let them be. Love them from afar, but don't lose yourself in the silence. Let them feel the calm space you now stand in. Not because you're angry, but because you're finally centered. And from that calm, something unexpected happens. You begin to glow again. Not in a loud way, not in a look-at-me way, but in a quiet strength that others feel. That's the start of regaining your sense of self. Not needing to be seen in order to feel worthy. Not needing to be called in order to feel connected. This is the season where absence begins to speak, and strangely enough, where attraction begins to return. Because when you stop trying to chase after the people who left, they often begin to wonder where you went. It's a strange truth of life. When you're always available, always initiating, always giving, people start to take you for granted. But when you step back, not out of spite, but out of self-respect, they notice. They begin to feel the space you used to fill. They may not say anything, not right away. But the questions start to come. Are you okay? You've been quiet. I was thinking about you. Suddenly, you're not the one waiting anymore. You're not pacing around hoping they'll remember your birthday. You're living. You're walking. You're reading, writing, gardening, laughing, doing things that make your life full again. And that, more than any text, more than any voicemail, becomes the most powerful response of all. You stop asking for their time. You give your time to yourself. And that's when your self-esteem starts to rebuild. Not through someone else's attention, but through your own intention. Let's keep going. Because the journey doesn't end with pulling back. It begins to truly unfold when you realize you don't need to fill that gap at all. Now that you've pulled back, something interesting starts to happen. You begin to see things more clearly, not through the lens of who you used to be, the always there, always available parent, but as someone stepping into a new kind of strength. You stop trying to fix things that aren't yours to fix, and instead, you quietly let your kids live with their own choices. It's not easy at first. You might find yourself wondering, what if they need help? Or, should I say something? But here's the truth. Stepping back doesn't mean you stop caring. It just means you stop carrying what isn't yours. And that might be the greatest gift you ever give yourself. And them. You spent years guiding, nurturing, picking them up when they fell. You caught their mistakes before the world could see them. But now, it's their turn. Let them stumble. Let them feel the weight of their decisions. Because only through that weight do they learn to stand tall on their own. And while they're learning that, you begin to rebuild. Not with fanfare, not with dramatic changes, but in the quiet moments of your day. In the small routines that become your new rhythm. You pour your coffee and actually taste it. You take walks without needing a destination. You go to the library, the garden center, the art class, not to distract yourself, but to enjoy being present again. The truth is, healing doesn't happen in the spotlight. It happens in silence. In the stillness of mornings where you don't reach for your phone first. In the peace of realizing you don't have to post about your progress or prove you're okay. You're just living it. You don't need to announce that you're rebuilding. You just do it. Quietly, steadily, like planting a garden in winter, trusting that something beautiful is coming, even if no one else sees it yet. And here's the most powerful part. You're no longer reacting. You're no longer holding your breath, waiting for them to call, to visit, to apologize, to explain. You've stopped asking, why did they stop showing up? And started asking, how can I show up for myself today? That shift is everything. That's where your energy returns, That's where your peace grows. Emotions will still come, of course. Sometimes strong, sometimes sneaky, sometimes right in the middle of folding laundry, or hearing a song from when they were little. But emotions, as powerful as they are, don't get to steer the ship anymore. Because by now, you've learned something vital. Emotions are signals, not commands. You feel sadness, yes, but you don't get lost in it. You feel disappointment, but it doesn't define your day. You may feel anger at how things turned out, but you don't let it build walls inside you. Instead, you observe. You breathe. You allow the feeling, and then you choose what to do with it. That's the kind of wisdom that doesn't come easily, but it lasts a lifetime. You've been through enough storms to know that feelings pass. And in the space where emotion once took over, you now have choice. You choose how to speak to yourself. You choose whether to hold on to resentment or release it. You choose whether to respond or to stay silent. That's the kind of power you don't need anyone's permission to use. So if the holidays come and go and the phone stays quiet, feel it, yes. But don't fall into it. Don't drown there. You have more to offer the world than waiting on a phone call. You have more to live for than their schedule. And sometimes, no response at all from you is the best answer there is. Let's say your child sends a message that's short, cold, or worse, nothing at all. You could respond with guilt. You could respond with anger. You could respond with a long text asking what happened, what changed. But none of that really helps. Instead, try saying nothing. Not out of pettiness, but because you've already said what needed to be said. The rest? It's theirs to carry. That silence will feel strange at first, but over time, it becomes a boundary. A line that says, "You don't get to treat me carelessly and still have my peace." And when you hold that silence, truly hold it without bitterness, it starts to teach people how to treat you. It teaches your kids that your energy is not endless, that your heart, while full, is not free for the taking, that being your child doesn't give them the right to disrespect the love you gave for years. And if they never come around, you still win, because the person you become in the silence is stronger than the one who waited for permission to matter. You don't need closure. You don't need explanations. You need space. Space to grow, to rest, to live. That's how you start rewriting your story. You stop waiting for someone else to give it a happy ending and pick up the pen yourself. What if this chapter, the one you're living right now, isn't the end of something? What if it's the beginning of your becoming? Not the old version of yourself who lived to serve others, always running, always giving, always tired. But someone new, someone wiser, calmer, more rooted in who they are, and less dependent on who remembers to call. You get to tell a new story now, one where your value isn't tied to being needed, but being whole, where your identity isn't just mom or dad, but a full human being with passions, friendships, and joy of your own. And yes, it takes work. It takes time. But every walk you take, every book you read, every project you start, those are brush strokes on your canvas, the one only you get to paint now. And along the way, you might find that the person you're becoming is someone you actually admire. They're calmer, kinder to themselves. They don't rush to fix what's broken in others. They're okay with being misunderstood. They don't need applause to know their worth. They're steady, solid, respected, especially by the one person whose opinion truly matters now, themselves. You might ask yourself, would I follow this person's lead? Would I trust them to make decisions, to hold boundaries, to live with clarity? If the answer is yes, then congratulations. You're not just surviving this stage of life. You're mastering it. And what a beautiful thing that is. You're not becoming the version of yourself your kids want to remember. You're becoming the version you were always meant to be. beneath the roles, beneath the expectations. You walk differently now, with more purpose, with less noise. And in that quiet, they may begin to hear the echo of your absence. That echo, it doesn't always come with fanfare. It's not loud or dramatic, but it lingers. It hums quietly in the background of their lives. They hear it when they open the cabinet and see a dish you gave them, when they walk past a store and remember you used to love that brand, when they have a bad day and instinctively reach for the phone, only to pause because you're not there in the same way anymore. You didn't cut them off, you didn't raise your voice, you didn't demand they feel guilty. You just stopped being available to the version of them that treated you as optional. And that changes things. For them, yes, but more importantly, for you. You stopped begging to be part of their lives. You started living yours. And in doing that, you became something unforgettable. Not because you yelled, not because you posted your feelings or sent long messages, but because you chose peace. You chose dignity. You chose to walk away from emotional scraps and sit down at a table you set for yourself. That kind of strength doesn't fade. It echoes. So many people think aging is about shrinking. Shrinking your world, your expectations, your needs. But it's not. It's about expansion. Expanding your mind, your time, your peace. Making more space inside yourself, not to fit other people's behavior, but to honor your own journey. And now, in this season of your life, you get to do something rare and powerful. You get to become the parent, the person you truly respect. Not the one who never says no, not the one who sacrifices everything to keep people close, but the one who knows their worth, the one who loves deeply, but never at the expense of self-respect, the one who can be there for others, but never disappears in the process. When you look in the mirror now, you don't just see someone's mother, someone's father. You see a whole human being, a survivor, a steady force. You've made it through heartbreak, silence, confusion, and disappointment, and you're still standing. That deserves respect. And not just from your children, but from you. Every morning you get up and choose to live, even with the ache of missing someone. That's strength. Every time you bite your tongue, instead of reminding them how little they call, that's growth. Every time you pick up a book, take a class, plant a flower, or just breathe more deeply than the day before, that's healing. You're not waiting to be chosen anymore. You're choosing yourself. And when someone does come knocking again, if they do, they won't be met with the same version of you. They'll meet someone who walks differently, someone who doesn't flinch when they come and go, someone who no longer hands out free access to their time, their energy, or their peace. They'll see the change, and whether they understand it or not, they'll feel it, because you've become someone who's moved beyond needing to be understood by everyone. You're too focused on being at peace with yourself. You no longer chase closure. You don't send the just wanted to check in messages. You don't linger in old conversations, old memories, or old patterns. You walk, you move, you grow. And as you do, your absence becomes louder than your presence ever was. It follows them, quietly, not as punishment, but as reflection, a reminder of who you were and who you are now. It's a strange thing, but often the deepest regrets are born in silence, not in arguments, not in slamming doors, but in the long pause after someone realizes they took something for granted. And when that moment comes, if it does, you won't be the one clinging to the past. You'll be too far ahead, not bitter, just better, not angry, just clear. You'll be the kind of person whose memory lingers, not because you demanded it, but because you lived your life so fully, so beautifully, that it left a mark. So if your children ever wonder why you stopped chasing, why you stopped calling, why you stopped showing up in the same way, let them. Let them sit with those questions. Let them grow their own answers. You don't owe them a performance, you owe yourself peace, and you've earned it. This life, this chapter, it belongs to you now. Fill it with things that light you up. Surround yourself with people who meet you with the same energy you bring. Wake up every day knowing that your value was never dependent on how much someone needed you. It was always there, quiet, steady, waiting to be remembered. And now, you remember. You remember how much you've given, how many nights you stayed up, how many decisions you made with nothing but love and instinct. You remember how strong you've been, even when no one saw it, especially when no one saw it. And that strength, it's still here. You're still here. Not the same. Not smaller. Not forgotten. Just wiser. Braver. More grounded than ever before. You've become the echo, the soft reminder in their lives that love isn't free. It's a gift. And when it's mishandled, it doesn't scream. It just goes quiet. It just moves on. And so do you. So here's your final truth. You didn't get left behind. You stepped into something better, something calmer, something that was waiting for you all along. A life built on your terms. You're not a victim of distance. You're the author of what comes next. Write something beautiful, something real, something that feels like you. If this message spoke to you, share your thoughts in the comments below. Let others know they're not alone. And if you want more content that supports you, uplifts you, and reminds you just how powerful you really are, hit that like button, subscribe, and join us here at Strong Elderly Life. Because this is your time, not to fade, but to shine. Here's to living your best life at any age. You are seen, you are valued, and most of all, you are not done.